Detroit Den 313. We are back, Steve and Will, talking that Detroit Lions football. Before we get started, you know what to do. Bang that subscribe button. Don't forget the bell icon so you don't miss any of our new content. Steve, tell them what it is, man.
Oh, man, I we're a little bit on different ends of the spectrum here, just a tad. I don't think we're far off, but with the Detroit Lions picking at 29,
Yep.
the possibilities that we're trying to narrow it down to are becoming more and more realistic. I feel like, and at one point, Kool-aid McKinstry was not a guy I didn't think would be on the Detroit Lions radar. But as time's going, a lot of mock drafts, breaking down some player personnel, breaking down this first round, who could go when, who could go where.
Yep.
Kool-aid McKinstry at 29, he's in my ballpark of three players in that range. How do you feel about old Kool-Aid?
Well, let me just put it frank. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. And I
Wow.
know I know everybody wants to use the ongoing joke, drinking the Kool-Aid of the Lions and then Kool-Aid McKinstry and it just fit and it flows. Hey, listen, I need this kid to come and play football. I'm not here to tell you that he's going to be the worst player in the NFL or the worst player in the draft or anything like that. I'm not. But when we're talking about best player available at 29, I can think of probably 40 players that I would rather have than him. So at pick 29 or trading up, or really trading back, he's just not somebody that's on my radar. When I watch the film, he doesn't do anything that wows me. He's a guy that could end up being a solid NFL starter. Um, that's not what I'm looking for at pick 29. I'm looking for an impact player. I'm looking for a game changer. I'm looking for somebody to push the needle for this team. I'm looking for somebody whose jerseys are going to be selling like hotcakes. I'm looking for somebody that's going to be special. Kool-Aid is somebody that I think is going to be solid, not special. I want special. End of the story for me. Not drinking the Kool-Aid. How you feel
Unbelievable.
about him? How you feel about him?
Like I said, at 29, he's probably in my top three of players that I think will be available. We don't know for sure who's going to be there, so it's really
Okay.
hard to say. But if it's Kool-Aid, Xavier Leggett, and a Braylon Trice, I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
I think I'm probably leaning either Kool-Aid or Braylon Trice, just because I'm locked on to defense. I'm not coming off my island. It's got to be defense in the first round. I know I've said pass rush, but Kool-Aid's really good, man. I know I trust you when you watch your film, but what I see is I think he's the third best corner in this draft. I don't think he's Kenyon Mitchell. I don't think he's Nate Wiggins. Who's that tier two leader? Is it Terrion Arnold? Is it Kool-Aid McKinstry? Is it TJ Tampa? Max Melton? Like, there's a lot of guys I like, but
Steve,
William.
he's not the best corner on his team.
Well, how do
Let's
you
start
figure?
there because
How do you
Terrion
how do you
Arnold
figure?
is better. Terrion Arnold is a better corner than him to me. Right?
And you know how I feel about Terrion Arnold. I'm very high on him as well.
I know. Yeah, and I don't particularly want either one of them, but I think we're not getting in the 40 times in the Pajama Olympics. I know that he ran a little bit faster than Terrion, but Terrion Arnold, I think at the end of this thing, when we look back, I think Terrion Arnold is going to have a better NFL career than Kool-Aid. Not to say that either one of them are going to be Pro Bowlers. I think we're looking at guys that are going to have solid NFL careers. Like I said, I want an impact. I want special, and I want it right now. And I don't think that that's what you're getting when you draft these guys. And I think there's some guys that are going to be available that are going to be special, special, and special.
Here's the thing.
Talk to me.
When you're picking at this point in the draft where the Lions are,
Yeah.
you've got a pretty solid roster. You don't get to pick 29, without being a good football team. The holes on this team are few and far between. We could talk offensive line, how they're getting a little older, how it's not a need right now. You don't address that in the first round. You kind of build that through the draft, free agency. You just kind of sprinkle that in. It's not all going to get fixed. So what I look at, what we need is a defensive end or a corner. And I know we have two starting corners. I know we have Amik Robertson. I know we have Carlton Davis. I know we just, God grace us with the presence of Kendall Vildor still. But I think Kool-Aid could be, I don't, like you said, I don't need him to be a Pro Bowler. And I don't think he's a Pro Bowl caliber player, but I think he could be a really, really good starter for a handful of years for the Detroit Lions.
I think it completely goes against everything that Brad Holmes says that he is. Because unless you're telling me that you don't believe that there's a Pro Bowler left in the draft at pick 29, then we're not drafting best player available. We're drafting off a need, which he said that he wouldn't do. We need to draft the Pro Bowler. We need to draft best player that's left on the board that fits our team, right? But fits our team is a balance. It's not by fit our team, we don't mean need. We mean the best player available that fits our schemes. And I don't think that that's going to be Kool-Aid Mckinstry because, like I said, I think that there's 35 to 40 guys that I would take ahead of him. Um, I want Max Milton before I want Kool-Aid, to be honest. I think he fits the Detroit Lions better. Honestly, I probably take in you, and maybe guys come for me if you want to. I'd probably take Mikey Singer still before I take Kool-Aid Mckinstry, man, because the IQ level, man, the relentless play. I think those are, and I think that he looks stickier and twitchier. You know what I mean when he's coming in and out of those breaks and the background playing offense. You know, starting off as a receiver, those elite ball skills, man. I think that that's something special, and there's something to be said for that. I get that he went to Alabama. I get that he played with Nick Saban. I get the Nick Saban, whatever. Whatever, man. Give me Micah Singersill before you give me Terrion Arnold or Kool-Aid Mckinstry in my book, man. And I'm not being a homer. I'm talking about based on the film. I'm talking about the big playability. We talked about it here. We talked about um, Mikey was one of the best defensive players and most impactful defensive players in Michigan history. Like he shows up in big moments. I know that we talked about maybe people were going away from Kool-Aid Mckinstry this year because he came into the season as the guy, but I don't think people were exactly attacking Mikey. I think he was just making plays in big moments, and that's what I want in this team. I want winners, man. I want winners. I want guys that are gonna be blue collar. I want guys that are going to show up and just be ready to play week in and week out. I want guys that are going to shut up and play and not be on Twitter. I just want football players, man. I'm not knocking Kool-Aid. I think that he's going to be a solid player in this NFL, but I think that there's some special guys that are going to be available at 29. And he's just not. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. I'll just leave it at that.
William, I can't believe you're going to make me do this.
Talk to me.
I can't believe it. I can't believe you're going to make me go down this road.
Let's talk.
I'm a Michigan man.
Yeah.
Wearing the old school logo. And I'm going
Yeah.
to tell you something about Mikey Sanders, though.
Yeah, talk to me.
He's a dog.
He is.
But there's a problem. When it goes to the amusement parks, he has to get measured to make sure he's tall enough to ride the rides. All right, let's just be honest.
Okay. What is he, 5'10"?
5'9" on a good day with washcloths in his shoes. All right. So I don't know. Look, I like Mikey Sanders still, but let me ask you the same question at 29. Do you see Mikey Sanders still as a Pro Bowl player?
I'm not drafting Mikey Sanders still at pick 29.
All right.
I just would rather
that would be your answer.
No, but it's just not. If you're telling me that I'm living in a world, it's where it's between him and Kool-Aid Mckinstry, then I'm gonna say I would draft Mikey over Kool-Aid Mckinstry. That's all I'm saying. But I'm not looking at either of them at 29. I'm looking at somebody that's gonna be special, man. Somebody, like I said, that's probably gonna spend the next decade on the Detroit Lions. When I'm drafting in the first round, to me, that's what I'm talking about.
Here's the thing. I like Kool-Aid Mckinstry a whole lot, but I don't want to tip my hand too much and say who I would rather have in round 1 when we got our mock draft coming up, because there's some guys in round 2 that I think you're right on, i.e. Max Melton, Renardo Green. Like there's some guys that I really like.
Yeah.
So
give me both of those guys before him.
Maybe. Well, before Kool-Aid, I don't know. Come on.
Don't give me both of them.
I don't know.
Give me a guy that's going to come in, show up, and play press man day one, man. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Just pull up the film.
You might not have been sipping any Kool-Aid today, but you've been sipping on a little something. I can just tell.
I'm telling you, man. Give me Green. Hey, give me Milton. Give me Mikey. I'll take all of them, man.
There are a lot of corners in this draft that we both really like.
Yeah, for sure.
There's only maybe 5 or 6 defensive ends / outside linebackers that I really like. So it's really going to come down to, like I said, at 29, this isn't a position the Lions have been in very many times. We don't pick here too often. So it's kind of uncharted waters for us. It's hard to predict who's going to be there. Yeah. There's really no way of knowing. But if Kool-Aid Mckinstry is the pick, depending on the board, I'm going to be okay with it. But in the first round, I'm not going to say who, but I want defensive end. Second round, I want cornerback. Third round, let's start addressing that offensive line a little bit, getting someone in there who can come in case of an injury for the future. You know, our Decker's up there in age. He's kind of knocking on that retirement door. We got Frank Ragnow. We don't know what's going on with him. We got 2 really good guards, but 2 really old guards. So we kind of got to focus on that O-line a little bit, but I don't think it's worth a first or second round pick when we can get quality starters with those picks. But why there's a reason we're talking Kool-Aid Mckinstry. So why don't you tell the people what you found today, and this
Yeah, that's
what kind of sparked this.
Yeah, I was gonna say we didn't really set the table. So, two Kool-Aid Mckinstry has had two official visits with the Detroit Lions. He had the one where they met together at the combine, and then today he had his top 30 visit with the Detroit Lions. So, to me, with two big time visits, that makes you think: are the Detroit Lions taking a strong look at him, and is there a strong possibility that he is going to end up a Detroit Lion? Um, and I know that you're going to tell me yes, because they're not going to do that for no reason. But I'm going to tell you the complete opposite. I've never known Brad Holmes to tip his hand. I've never, since he's been in Detroit, I have never known him to tip his hand, even when he knew deep down in his soul that if Aiden Hutchinson was there, he was going to sprint to the podium, right? If his mother was in the way, he was going to run her over and he was going to turn that card in. And he didn't give a darn about getting fined by the commissioner or whatever he needed to deal with. But Aiden Hutchinson was going to be in Detroit. He said all of the things. He wasn't sure, and they were still looking at the analytics, and they're looking at a lot of guys, and they brought all types of people in on visits when they knew that Aiden Hutchinson was their pick. So he's just doing his due diligence. He's just playing the chess games. If there's an Alabama player that's going to be on this team, I'm going to tell you guys again, it's Chris Braswell. It's not Terrion Arnold. It's not Kool-Aid Mckinstry. If there's a Bama guy that's going to end up on the Lions, his name is Chris Braswell, and he's got a vicious long arm, and we will be seeing it in Detroit if a Bama guy comes at 29. In my opinion, that's just what I believe. But hey, who knows?
I feel like we did an episode before where I told you it was going to be a Bama player at 29, and I stood on an island, and you called me crazy. You called me nuts.
I did call you nuts in the sense of I told you because you said what he was going to do at that visit, or when he went to go see Bama instead of Michigan, and I told you the only person that he was there to go see was Chris Braswell.
And then here we are a week later with an official top 30 visit with Kool-Aid Mckinstry. Will the breadcrumbs they're being sprinkled?
Hey, you know what Brad Holmes does? His poker face is like this.
You know what Steve Perkins does? He picks up on clues. I'm going to tell you this. A top 30 visit. Now, I'm not saying Kool-Aid Mckinstry is a lock. I'm not saying he's a guarantee to be the pick. But I think we could both agree that both of these visits, Brad Holmes going to Alabama to get a firsthand look at his workouts hand in hand, the interest level from Brad Holmes is very, very, very high.
In Chris Braswell. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if it's another one of those situations when they were doing with Jalen Carter and they're bringing these guys in, asking them about the other dude. Like, hey, Kylie Ringo, why don't you tell me about Jalen Carter?
Same thing with
hey Kool-Aid. I'm glad we got you here, man. Could you tell us a little bit about Chris? Like, what's
same thing with
what type
Sam
of guy
Laporta, and they were asking him about Jet Campbell.
Hey,
but I'm just saying, you would agree that the interest level is there. Yeah,
in Chris Braswell.
Stop.
I'm just telling you what it is.
You are. You're. I can't deal with you when you're like this. All right.
I'm just calling it like I see it.
So here's the thing. Brad Holmes has a thing for Alabama players. Nick Saban runs his college like a NFL level team. I mean, he puts guys in the NFL hand over fist, like nonstop. Every single year, there's 10 Alabama players in the NFL, sometimes 10 in the first round. Just depends on how loaded they are on defense. The way Nick Saban prepares his players is second to none at the college level. They're smart. I would pay to be a fly on the wall for one of these conversations that happens behind closed doors that we will probably never hear about. Maybe a little sneak peek on Inside the Den when that gets released. But I think Kool-Aid Mckinstry probably has a lot higher of an IQ, because when you go to Alabama, you're expected to win championships. That's been the standard for the past 15 years. You come to Alabama, you put on the crimson jersey, you're expected to win the SEC, compete for a national championship. And at one point, I don't know if it's still true, every single player who came through Nick Saban's program left with a national championship. I think he kind of hit a dry spell there for a minute towards the end, but I think that's still the case. So that's always been the standard. So Kool-Aid Mckinstry, if he lives up to Nick Saban standards, I think he's good enough to play in the NFL. Now, again, probably not a Pro Bowler, probably not an All-Pro, but I see the preparation being there, and it's probably been there since he's been at Alabama.
Steve.
William.
When we do the mock drafts and when we do them from a realistic standpoint, because I feel like we both do a good job of when we do these mock drafts, even in the 17th round when Braden Fisk is still available, we don't take them because it's not realistic, man. We're seeing them. In all seriousness, in a third round, sometimes he's around and stuff, and we don't take him. We don't do mock drafts that we think are just ridiculous. But being realistic, by the players that you think probably are going to be available at pick 29, do you believe that there's going to be some Pro Bowlers available at 29?
I mean, there's always that chance. You just never know because, I mean, we got a Pro Bowler in the 4th round in Amon St. Brown. So, yeah, there will be. It's
So,
just, do they translate? I don't know.
so I'm thinking about when you're talking about guys like Johnny Newton, man. You know what I mean? Those are guys that, you know, their names are being tossed around on the back end of this draft. Byron Murphy, names being tossed around at the back end of this draft, man. Liatu Latu, man, are guys that are going to be on the back of the draft, you know. I've even seen Jared Verse slip into 20 or 19 or something like that. So it's like, but I'm just saying, like, there is the way when we did the numbers, when we talked about, and we said it in previous episodes, all of the tackles, all of the quarterbacks, Bowers, right? All of the receivers, the guards, because there's 2 or 3 guards that could be coming off of this board. That's a lot of players that are going to have to go through, and we ain't even getting into the edge rushers. So there's a lot of players that have to go. To me, I think that there is about 35 to 40 players that are going to be impactful players. Really, I really have a high belief that these players are going to be impactful players. So I don't think we have to just take a corner because we want to have a corner, you know, or we think that we need some cornerback depth. I think that we can just take the guy that we think is the best player for our team. And I just highly doubt that that's Kool-Aid Mckinstry, unless we're talking about moving back in the draft and getting extra pieces, then maybe. But at pick 29, I just don't see it, man. There's just so many guys that I would rather have than him. But, you know, hey, if that's what Brad sees, I'm going to say, hey, guy's smarter than me. He's the best GM in the NFL for a reason. I'm gonna tip my hat to him, and I'm gonna sit back and learn when he hits the football field in training camp and look for what I missed. But right now, from what I see, I just don't see Kool-Aid Mckinstry as somebody that's going to be a Pro Bowler. I see somebody that's going to be a solid NFL player. Then I got some guys with some grades when we do these mocks that are special. And if they're there, I'm going to run into the podium almost like we did for Aiden Hutchinson.
I mean, I don't know. You keep saying the word Pro Bowler. There's guys in the top 10 who don't go in the Pro Bowl, though. I mean,
I agree.
It's just, you know, really, you're not going to make a Pro Bowl as a rookie unless you're like a Sauce Gardner. It's very hard to do. But if you come into the right situation with a good background, which I think he has from Alabama, you come into the Detroit Lions, it's kind of becoming one of those established teams in the NFL with a good coaching staff. Aaron Glenn, you know, very underrated coach, kind of gets a lot of heat. You put him in that situation, you give him 2 or 3 years, we might have a Pro Bowl caliber player. We might. But time will tell on the Pro Bowl talk.
Yeah, I want a dude, man. I want a dude right now. I want a dude that is kind of like Brian Branch, man. I believe Brian Branch, Kansas City Chiefs game, week 1. Didn't he have a pick?
Pick 6. It's just a pick.
Man,
Come on, don't shortchange him.
I was gonna work my way up. I was leading it there.
No, I won't let you lead it. I'm tee it up. I'm gonna hit a home run. You're not gonna tee it up for me.
Yeah. Did he take that bad boy to the crib? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it's just like that's what I want, man. I want these guys that are gonna come in, and I know I get it. That draft class last year was special, man.
It's gonna be hard to beat.
And we left that, and I know there are some people that was like super upset. We left that draft like, man, I can't believe.
We said if you just reverse the order of the 3 guys that these were drafted in, or the three picks, if you just change up their order, you put Brian Branch at 12 and Jack Campbell in the 2nd round, Jahmyr Gibbs at 18. Like, who cares? You got your guys.
After we got Brian Branch, I was worried because I thought Brad Holmes might get arrested
for stealing.
For stealing. Like it was like he robbed the NFL last year. It was crazy.
Shame on us. Didn't even mention Sam Laporta,
That's what I was saying, man. Like when we start putting a combination of everything that he put together, like, I mean, if you told me that, if you showed it to me in a mock draft, I would have said you're lying. You're lying, right? So I don't know, man. I just think that a guy with his eyeballs and even though the order was a little bit goofed up, I feel like to pat each other on the back a little bit, we had some guys rated in some good spots that we picked up last year. Mm-hmm. So I just feel like I just don't see it. And there's some guys that I do see it. And this thing is even getting narrowed down and dialed even more. I don't want to give away too much, but
he hit the
yeah,
brakes.
yeah. But I got some guys that I love, and you got some guys that you love, man. And I think that when we really start to let people know who we're starting to get locked in on, I think they'll even understand more, man, that it's not a knock on Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid's going to be a good football player, but there's just some guys that are dudes. And if they're there, you got to go get them first, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. So, guys, we're less than 3 weeks away from the draft. It's coming up. It's knocking on the door. Plans have been set. Hotel rooms have been booked. The only thing I'm missing is a drink in my hand and some Lions fans around me at Ford Field. So we're talking a little Kool-Aid today because we found out he had an official visit with the Detroit Lions on Thursday. He had an official visit at the combine. There's an interest there from Brad Holmes. How deep that is, what he's looking for, what kind of questions he's asking, we don't know. We probably never will know. It's all just speculation. We're just throwing some scenarios off the wall, seeing what sticks. Leave some comments. Let us know how you feel. Hit that like button. If you're new here, stick around. Hit that subscribe button as well. We'll be back later with some more content.
Peace.